I challenged myself to make an 8-page full-color short comic in 1 month. This is how it went. It's so dumb. Let's say, hypothetically, you have an idea for a really dope story and you want to make a comic about it, having little to no experience actually making comics. For argument's sake, let's say you want to make a huge, sprawling fantasy story with dozens of named, important characters. Something like Fairy Tale meets Game of Thrones, with tons of intrigue and spectacular magic battles. Now let's say, again, just like hypothetically, you start writing this story, crafting the world building, working on character designs. You're happy. You're excited to be working on a creatively fulfilling project. Life is good. And then fast forward 4 years, and you're on the 2.5 draft of a script for the first book of a planned trilogy that you haven't drawn a single page for. You've started and restarted drawing the thumbnails and the page layouts like 3 times. Your script has lots of plot holes. The characters' motivations are all over the place. You lost control of the project. You feel like you should give up. What? Is this totally made up hypothetical a little too specific? Fine, it was me. The phone call was inside the house. My greatest enemy was the reflection in the mirror. No, I'm not being overly dramatic. I'm being exactly the right, sexy amount of dramatic. Hi, I'm Mo. Welcome to my channel. I started this channel as a way to talk to my fellow artists about art and maintaining good mental health as artists. A little bit about me. I've been drawing since before you were born. I'm 9 feet tall and Bigfoot owes me $10. In this video, I'll discuss why my big comic project is dead-ish, why I'm going to be sticking with short comics for a while, and why I think you should too. If you're an artist who makes comics, or is thinking about starting, or if you're like me and have started a project that's too big to handle, this video is for you! So like I was saying, for the last few years I've been working on what will be my first ever full-length graphic novel called Bound. Unfortunately, I've started to find myself losing love for it just a bit, and the simplest reason is bloat. I've been making small comics off and on for years, and my main goal in life has always been to become a comic author. I had an ongoing webcomic years ago called Philo that I posted on DeviantArt over the course of a few years. I'd sort of write out a few pages at a time and then post them about once every few months. I abandoned it after 20 or so pages when I realized I had written myself into a tight corner, which is why for Bound, I wanted to have an entire script done before I even started getting into the pages. But it turns out that having a script without planning any of the pages is bad and sucks. More about that later. Most art YouTubers I've watched who've covered topics like this all pretty much have the same advice for people who want to start making comics. Make a short story first. Of course, when I heard this advice, I was already partway through writing Bound, and while the scope of its world and characters had continued to grow and... Fuck me, hold on. I want to nail this one because I think it's good. Okay. Of course, when I heard this advice, I was already partway through writing Bound, and while the scope of its world and characters had continued to grow and spiral into an uncontainable monster with more holes in the plot than Mothman's wool sweater, I was firmly rooted in my exceptionalist delusions. I didn't want to quit. I knew I could do it if I just kept going. You idiot! And here's the thing, I still haven't given up on Bound.
You idiot!
Someday I will finish my badass fantasy epic, but it's definitely gonna need some shrinkage and some reworking. The point is, as I've learned, all of those great artists were correct. So I took a step back and realized I still have so many story ideas inside my thought box, and if I let myself get stuck on one project for my whole life, then I might never get the chance to explore those ideas. I'd already slowly stopped working on Bound, so why not? So after years of claiming to be a comic artist, I finally finished one comic project. And I'm happy to say that it made me excited about comics again. By making a short comic, I learned a lot. like exactly how long it takes to make each page and how to plan out pages, I gained perspective, y'all. And that's the most important lesson, because if you're wanting to make a 100 or 200 or 300 page story, you first have to think about how long it'll take you. Here are a few things I did that helped me finish my short story. First, a deadline. I challenged myself to make an 8-page comic in 4 weeks, and let me tell you, it was not an easy 4 weeks. But I think that deadline was the first key to actually finishing the thing. Parkinson's law states that work will expand to fill the available time. However, the inverse of this is also true. If you only give yourself a limited amount of time to do something, then you're going to do everything you can to make sure it gets done. Now that I know that I'm capable of making something like this, I can also estimate how long a bigger project might take me. Second, I believe I was able to complete this project because I started with a solid foundation of planning. Nothing crazy, but I made a simple table in Google Docs, 1 week for scripting and page layouts or sketching, 2 weeks for final lines, and 1 for coloring and rendering, etc. This is the first comic where I've ever tried combining the scripting and sketching phases, and I found that it really helped with the pacing and planning out reveals and things like that. I'm not sure how this process would translate to a bigger project, but I definitely want to try using this again in the future. Third, I borrowed a technique from comic artist YouTuber Trent Kanayuga. I painted some pre-made assets which I used to fill in certain parts of the background. This did save some time, but I also ended up hand painting a lot of individual panels anyway, but I think that I'd still be open to trying this technique again in the future and refining it a bit more. Lastly, I made sure to keep the plot very straightforward and simple, which allowed me to focus a lot more on the dialogue and fun character moments. I was actually really surprised at just how much I was able to say about the characters in such little space as 8 pages. Although, if I'm allowed to be a little self-deprecating, I do feel like some of the pages are a bit wordy at times, but I think that's part of the compromise of making something at this scope. During this video, you've been watching the process of that short comic, or at least the first few pages, because I didn't want to spoil anything in case you want to read it. And yes, I'm also proud to announce that you can read this right now. This project is available on my website for completely free, along with some bonus material like character sheets and concept art. And while you're there, you can also buy something from my shop. This comic is based on an idea I had for another graphic novel, and so I made this as sort of a vertical slice / pilot episode. Found in Space is a father-son sci-fi journey all about finding a place to belong. Chep is a small, klutzy alien child who dreams of becoming a space hero. His adopted father, Ed, is a human astronaut from Earth who ended up stranded light years away from home with no way back. If you think this premise sounds interesting, let me know in the comments, and please consider giving this mini-comic a read on my website. I'd love to continue this project if people are interested in it, or hell, maybe if people aren't interested, because I love these characters so far. Going forward, I'm going to try to make at least 2 more short story comics this year, unrelated to this one. Please like and subscribe if you're interested in seeing more videos about art and making comics and trying to stay sane. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. You deserve it.